Speaker Berkow, is that a good result?
Yeah.
Did you vote for him?
Oh, sure, I voted for him all the way through. And it's not true we just voted for him to spite. We needed a clean break speaker. The Tories' big idea was to have Sir George Young, who would have been a great speaker in normal times. But had we elected a 70-year-old old Etonian baronet, would have been a laughing stock. He's going to be a good speaker. And the Tories need to be careful. They keep slagging him off. It makes no sense to slag off your own speaker when MPs are in such disrepute. And some of the things they keep alleging, he's oily, he's greasy, he's bumptious, to me just had a teeny hint of anti-Semitism. Doesn't show the Tories in a good light.
And let me put this suggestion to you, Michael. This Tory talk that if they win the next election and get a big majority, they'll have the votes to turf him out. I put it to you, that ain't going to happen. Unless he makes a complete mess of it.
No, of course. I mean, the Speaker who's just been ousted was the first Speaker to be ousted for 300 years.
1695.
So the House of Commons can hardly make a habit of it. No, I mean, that has all been, I think, extraordinarily silly talk. I don't agree with everything Diane just said, but I do agree that it's put those Tories who said it in an extremely bad light.
How's he gone down on the... I know you're a supporter of his, but step back from that. How has he gone down on the backbenches so far?
Well, fine. I mean, he's made this point about ministers must stop announcing things on the Today programme, they must come to the House, which backbenchers on both sides I think is very important. And he's trying to shut up some of the more some of the more greasy questioners that's the word I was searching for. Some of the more Labour questioners. So that's a good thing.
He was quite, as we do every Wednesday, covered the PMQs live on the Daily Politics. He was pretty sure-footed.
I think so. Nice.
And articulate, which made a change.
Well, I think he's going to be fine. I'm glad I supported him.
No, okay.
But I just want to say there is a huge irony because when the last Speaker resigned, remember it was about MPs' expenses and we were looking for the next Speaker to be the big reformer. The day that this Speaker takes over, it is the government that comes in with a big clunking fist and says this is how we're going to run things in the House of Commons. We're going to have this new quango, we're going to have criminal offences, we're going to have fines. You know, where is the Speaker?
So the Speaker might not be that important going forward, in these terms anyway. The Iraq inquiry, when we talked last week, Diane, you kind of thought the Iraq inquiry had become a kind of waste of space. Is it morphing into something useful now?
It might be. I actually voted with the government on this yesterday, which was me giving the government the benefit of the doubt, because they have moved on it without actually coming to the Commons and saying we've moved on it.
Why did you vote? I mean, surely you should have voted for full transparency.
Well, the actual wording of the government's motion talked about it being a largely open inquiry.
I mean, it is kind of hilarious now because, you know, most of the action on this is going to take place after the next election. Supposing we have a Conservative government. I mean, all of this has been done by Brown to placate the Labour Party today. And the person who's not going to be very happy about this is, of course, Tony Blair, who may, under a future Conservative government, be dragged forward for days and days of public hearings.
The story the Spectator's leading on is it was all a deal between Brown and Campbell and Madison in the first place to have a secret inquiry so Tony Blair wouldn't have his feet held to the fire.
Well, it doesn't look like that's going to happen now. That'll be interesting indeed. And of course, William Hague has said in the Commons this week that if the Tory government gets into power, they're prepared to change the terms of reference, even ongoing, to make it more public or have under oath or whatever. Anyway, Mr. Cameron and his new friends in Europe, his friends from Europe. Now, on the BBC, we've had great fun at looking at some of the wackier. This guy who's gone to the Waffen-SS and someone that said Obama's election was the end of the white man and so on. But does anybody, I mean, as Quentin Lett said, some of the people in the Labour coalition are pretty dodgy too. Do you think, does anybody care? I
don't think anybody cares. And Cameron has emerged from this, you know, pretty well, I would say. I mean, remember that to the Tories, to be associated with federalists, people who believe in a federal Europe, is almost as obnoxious as, you know, some of the things that these other people are being accused of. So, you know, the Tories were absolutely desperate to get out of a federalist coalition. It's true that some of the other people are a little bit wacky.
Nut jobs is the word you're searching for.
Well, I wasn't particularly searching for that word. But
you kind of feel it's impossible, given some of the characters involved, it would last.
We all showed 3 weeks ago how very important the European Parliament is to us. It isn't at all.
So I mean, we can have some fun with it at times, but probably no real political mileage.
Well, it was a Dane geld that Cameron had to pay to his right wing, and he's done that now.
And a lovely historical reference.
I mean, many of us thought that he may resile, to use this terrible American word, from it, but he's actually stuck to it.
He's stuck to his side of the deal.
Now, Mervyn King. What do you make? I mean, it's remarkable. There's now an alternative government in the Bank of
Gordon
England.
may live to regret trying to move him out.
Apparently, the best bit of advice you can be given is don't cross Merv.
Exactly.
And the last two chancellors of the Exchequer, the present one and the previous one, clearly have crossed him very, very badly. But I mean, let's face it, isn't what the Governor of the Bank of England is saying absolute common sense? At the rate at which we're borrowing, there must be a serious doubt as to whether people are going to be willing to lend to the government.
Well, let's take it in chronological order, because he had two important things to say. What he said, first of all, was that going into the recession, going into the financial meltdown, the government's fiscal position wasn't sustainable. Now, that is a direct assault on Chancellor Brown's economic record.
I'm afraid it is. As I say, Merv doesn't think he owes Gordon any favours, because Gordon toyed with the idea of moving him, and it became public. So he's not dressing anything up.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting political moment, because the Tories have not for some time really run very hard the idea that this recession was caused by Gordon Brown. This Mervyn King testimony, puts a bit of heat back into that. On the other hand, Gordon Brown is trying, without very much support even from his own cabinet, to run the same election campaign as the last two.
Cuts v spending.
Cuts versus spending. And that's not going too well for the Prime Minister at the moment either. So I thought it was quite an interesting week politically.
But it's not been... Mr Brown's found it harder, I think, than he thought he would to get this whole cuts v spending off the ground. If he's now got the Governor of the Bank of England saying, look, we don't have a plan to draw the debt down again in the years after 2012, and that we need to do that more quickly. Now, we all know that can only be done by cuts in public spending or higher taxes. The cuts v spending issue becomes even more. The Tories just say, listen to the Governor.
Let me advance a theory. The theory says that we run this, Tories 10% cuts thing because the base loves it and it cheers the base up. Then slowly we move towards explaining to the base that we are actually going to make cuts. As somebody said to me today, in Parliament, another Labour MP, they said, well, what the Tories should be asking is, if you're not going to make these 10% cuts, what taxes are you going to put up to make good the deficit?
Well,